Okay, so this is a scripted review, which is a new thing I'm going to start doing, where I'm going through the archives and making book reviews out of old blog posts or old book reports. This is the first one, so going all the way back to the oldest one I've still got my hands on, which is from 11th grade, which is Foundation by Isaac Asimov. This was for a modern literature course I took in high school. We had like 5 books that were assigned for the curriculum, and then the 6th one we could pick. I think it was from like a list of authors that the teacher pre-approved, you know, kind of famous authors of the 20th century. Isaac Asimov was not on that list, but I was a big science fiction buff, so I asked the teacher, and yeah, the teacher said, "Oh yeah, Isaac Asimov is fine. You know, he's science fiction, but he's one of the respectable science fiction people." So I picked up Foundation and really liked it. I found it really interesting. It's faded in the memory now somewhat. This was 20 years ago now, more than 20 years ago. But I've got what I wrote at the time, and I've got some memories of it, and what I remember is really good. I'm not quite sure why I never continued with the series, because there's a whole series of books, other than the usual reason is you just get distracted by other things and other things are vying for your attention, you just never come back to it. But you know, there was the thing about the Foundation series, if you're not familiar with it, is it's based on the fall of the Roman Empire, but it's like the fall of the Galactic Empire, so it's kind of happening on this cosmic scale in the future. And there's kind of this person who develops this theory of history where he thinks he's going to be able to predict what's going to be happening as the Galactic Empire falls. And it's for a history buff, and I was also a huge history buff in addition to being a science fiction nerd, the parallels to the kind of fall of the Roman Empire are very interesting. Anyways, that's about all I can remember about the book. Odd bits and things kind of stuck in the memory, but that's the main thrust. One of these days, I'm probably due to kind of come back to this series and kind of reread the first Foundation and then just maybe continue on. But for now, I'll just kind of read what I've got here. So the assignment was we were supposed to write 6 journal entries as we read the book. So like the first and second and third journal entry, I wasn't even finished with the book, but by the 5th and 6th one I was. And then a final book report at the end. So, journal entry 1. Isaac Asimov, the author of Foundation, was influenced by many things that helped him to come up with the book. To start with, the book is science fiction, and so a large part of it is based on science. Isaac Asimov has several degrees in chemistry, including a PhD. He is also a professor of chemistry at Boston University. Asimov has loved science fiction since he was 9, and has been writing science fiction stories since he was 11, submitting one to be published at 18. 4 years later, he got his first story published. Asimov developed the idea for Foundation in a hurry, since he had an appointment to discuss the plot of a story he had not even thought of. He opened a book at random to do a free association and saw a picture of soldiers. That gave him the idea to write about a galactic empire and its fall, since he had read Gibbon's Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire twice. All of these things influenced Asimov's writing in Foundation. That's not in the book, but I think all of that was in the introduction and about the author section of the book. Okay, so it is in the book, but it's not part of the story proper. All right, number 2, journal entry number 2. One of the main themes in Foundation is that of how a culture can become stagnated. Like the Roman Empire and many nations before and after it, Asimov shows the cultural deterioration of the Galactic Empire. When Lord Dorwin comes to visit from Trantus, he talks about his interest in archaeology. When trying to solve the question of human origin, he read all the books by master archaeologists and weighed their points against each other. When Hardin suggested he go to the sites himself, he only laughed. Nuclear power was also in danger. It had been lost in the periphery. A power plant underwent meltdown and Gamma Andromeda because of poor repairs. There is a complaint about the scarcity of nuclear technicians, but instead of training more, nuclear power is just restricted. The Minute Foundation are caught in a trap. When faced with an attack by Anacreon, they rely on the long-dead Harry Seldon for an answer instead of finding one themselves. They don't seem to realize they could find a solution just as well as he could. Asimov showed how this lack of responsibility led to the downfall of the Galactic Empire. His message serves as a warning for the United States today. Journal Entry 3. Besides showing how the Galactic Empire became stagnated, another theme in Foundation is that problems can always be solved without violence. When in a disagreement with the Foundation leaders, Yate Fullman said that Salvador Hardin suggested that violence was the only solution to the Nacreon threat. Hardin retorted that violence is the last refuge of the incompetent. 30 years later, when Seth Cermak demanded violence against Anacreon, Hardin had him read a framed statement on his wall. Violence is the last refuge of the incompetent. Cermak accuses it of being an old man's philosophy, but Hardin reminded him that he had first applied it as a young man. Hardin sticks to his doctrine as well. When accused of using violence in his coup, he points out that not one life was lost. The transfer of power went very smoothly. When Anacreon tries to set up a base on Foundation, Hardin responds by convincing Anacreon's neighbors not to allow it. When Anacreon tries to attack Foundation, Hardin appeals to the morals of the Anacreon soldiers. The fate of those who follow violence is also shown. Venus, who killed his brother so he could rule Anacreon, who tried to attack Foundation and tried to kill Hardin through trickery, ends up destroyed. His son, who supported him, was beaten senseless by angry soldiers. He was to be imprisoned before he committed suicide. Through these examples, Asimov shows how there is always an alternative to violence. Number 4. In Foundation, Asimov shows the simplicity and therefore the danger of mob control. The ability of political leaders to convince the populace of many things leads to their success. Even Harry Seldon's psychohistory is based on mob reactions. Salvador Hardin used the actions of the common people to control the four kingdoms. By turning science into a religion, he made Foundation the center of this religion. When Venus tried to conquer Foundation, he is defeated when Hardin is able to convince the people it is sacrilegious. Another example is that of Ascon. It didn't want to trade with Foundation, fearing it would cause them to be under the control of the religion. Yet despite their efforts, once trade began with Foundation, they were quickly overtaken. In a conversation with Joran Sut, Malo points out how dangerous this policy is. He calls it an insecure overlordship based on the hated supremacy of a foreign spiritual power, which once it weakens ever so slightly, can only fall entirely and leave nothing substantial behind except an immortal fear and hate. Sut intends to sue this religion against the Foundation. To illustrate the situation, Malo quotes Hardin. A nuclear blaster is a good weapon, but it can point both ways. When Sut hopes to ruin Malo, taking him to court not with the intent of convicting him, but with the intent of turning the people against him, Mallow responds by turning the tables. With the wrath of the people on him, Soot is ruined. Throughout the book, mob control plays a big part in the plot. It is used for good and for evil by various characters. Number 5. The setting plays a very important part in Foundation. It is from this setting that allows most of the action in the book to take place. The setting in Foundation is somewhat unusual. The location of Foundation is out in space. It begins on the capital planet of the Galactic Empire, Trantor. It then moves to a planet on the edge of the galaxy, Terminus. After some of the provinces revolt, Terminus finds itself surrounded by powerful kingdoms and is cut off from the Empire, providing much of the storylines. Also, Terminus has almost no middles, making it hard for the planet to defend itself. The time period of Foundation is very far into the future. A specific date is not given, but the Galactic Empire has already been in existence for 12,000 years, and humans have been in space so long they've forgotten which planet they originated from. This time allows for space travel, new technology, and allows the author to create a world of his own. The occupation of many of the characters are scientists. Their knowledge allows them leverage over the neighboring barbaric kingdoms. Many of the other characters are politicians. This allows a political drama to take place. All of these factors give Foundation some interesting twists that other books might not have. It allows the characters opportunities otherwise not available, and makes an interesting book. Number 6. In addition to the setting of the planet of Foundation, the setting of its neighboring planets is also important. This setting contributes to the plot of the book as well. Trantor, the capital of the Galactic Empire, is so greatly covered with metal that its inhabitants can't even see the sky. This will be later contrasted against Terminus, which has a shortage of metals. Because it is encased in metal, Trantor can produce little of its own necessities and has almost everything imported. Also, being the capital makes everyone who lives on Trantor more aware of current events than the colonies, whose news is censored. Anacreon is a monarchy. This leads to some struggles for the throne. It is also the home of Knackbird, a favorite hunting sport. Accidents involved in hunting allow for a king to be assassinated when his son was threatened. Although called a republic, Corel is actually a dictatorship. The commander, Asper, has absolute power and uses it. More importantly, the Foundation has no contact with what is left of the Galactic Empire, but Corel does. Asper has married the daughter of a powerful man in the Galactic Empire and receives several ships from him, with which he tries to conquer Foundation. The Galactic Empire's philosophy of bigger and better, however, gives Foundation the advantage when it comes to portability. All of these planets and countries the Foundation interacts with is the basis for most of the plot. The setting of these planets allows for the interaction. Okay, and then the final paper. To say the setting of a book is important would be pointless, as it is a statement everyone knows is true. The setting is essential to all plots. However, in some stories, it can truly be said that the setting plays a greater role than in others. Some stories could not exist in a different setting, and Foundation is one of those stories. Through the time period, the jobs of the characters, and the location The setting of Foundation plays a significant role. Time is the most obvious of these. The date of the story is not given in our years, but on page 3 we learn that the Galactic Empire has been in existence for 12,069 years. Lord Dorwin reveals humans have been in space so long that they forgot which planet they originated on, or are not even sure they originated from a single planet. He says, in his peculiar, effective, noble way of talking, "Surely you must know that it is thought that originally the human race occupied only one planetary system. Of course, no one knows exactly which system it is, lost in the mists of antiquity." The future allows Asimov to create his own universe, so to speak. He is able to make up all the nations, all the political systems, all the cultures, and all the technology of the future. He utilizes this fully, creating various kingdoms which must deal with each other. Asimov also writes a scene in which Harry Seldon is attacked in court by the Commission of Public Safety. Salvor Hardin expresses his frustration with the government by saying, "The Board of Trustees of the Encyclopedia Committee has been given full administrative powers. I, as mayor of Terminus City, have just enough power to blow my nose and perhaps to sneeze if you countersign an order giving me permission." This leads to him changing the government in a coup. Throughout the book, the technology also plays an important part, giving Foundation an edge over its more powerful neighbors and making the Galactic Empire the most dangerous threat to Foundation. Another important element of setting is the job of the characters. At the beginning of the book, most of the main characters are scientists. This turns out to be very important later in the novel, because when the Galactic Empire falls, much of its knowledge is forgotten, except for that preserved by the Foundation. Foundation's scientific advancement over its neighbors proves to be its only defense. Later in the book, many of the main characters are politicians. This is also essential to the plot, as the reader must follow their struggles to get re-elected and delicate negotiations they must make with other nations. Near the end of the book, the main characters are mostly traitors. A whole new perspective is given, since the first priority of a traitor is profit, and helping Foundation is done only if it is convenient. The traitors often bend the laws of Foundation or tradition to be able to sell their goods. Since travel is a major part of the traitors' lives, through them we get to see other planets and nations besides the Foundation, such as Ascone or the Corellian Republic. A third part of the setting is, of course, the location. Most of the book takes place on the planet of Terminus. Terminus has very few middles. This is important because without middles, weapons cannot be made. Foundation is left to rely on its wits when faced with enemy attack, rather than fight back. Also, Terminus is located on the edge of the Galactic Empire. When the provinces revolted, the Foundation was cut off from the rest of the Empire, and so was on their own against the new kingdoms. It is not till the end of the book, almost 200 years later, that Foundation discovers the Galactic Empire still exists in the center of the galaxy. There are many other ways of setting a Foundation makes the story possible. If I had the room, I would talk about the space travel or perhaps the setting of the various nations Foundation interacts with. I do not feel that this is necessary, as I believe the above paragraphs sufficiently show my point. Without the setting it has, Foundation simply could not exist. The setting is certainly very important in this book.